Well, this is what it all comes down to, folks. It's the national championship game and what many of us anticipated, Alabama and Georgia for a rematch. And to break it down from the Bama side, we got Stephen M. Smith on the line from touchdownalabama.com. And also, please join us, Stephen, on his show. He's got a call-in show right here on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. In my own words, 6 p.m. Central Time. Give Stephen a call. How's it going today, man?
Doing great, man. Happy New Year to you, Mark. We got the national championship next weekend. Did we have any doubt that it was going to be a rematch from the SEC championship game between Alabama and Georgia? So we got Kirby Smart and Nick Saban doing this tango again.
They sure are, and it's been a one-sided tango, but we'll see what Kirby's got in store here in a few days. Looking at the Bama win against Cincinnati, I'll give some credit to Cincinnati right out of the gate. They certainly never challenged seriously in the game, but they kept it close. It was 10-3 for a long time. You know, they were in the game. They cut it to, what was it, 17-6. You know, there was, you know, they held up physically, athletically. They didn't look embarrassed, outmatched on the field, but clearly Bama was the superior team. In terms of Bama's approach, Stephen, it reminded me of their approach against Notre Dame last year, where they didn't seem to cut it loose, and it felt as though they just thought, okay, we're in control of this game. We're going to run the ball, and obviously they set the tone right out of the gate on that first drive with 12 or 13 consecutive runs before the touchdown pass. Do you think that was by design in setting up for this game against Georgia, or that was just how they needed to play Cincinnati?
I think it was a bit by design, Mark, but I think also Alabama wanted to prove it could run the football. And this is an offensive line that's been sort of up and down all year. So this was the first time Nick Saban kind of looks at Doug Marrone and looks at his offensive lineman and also looked at Brian Robinson, who's been here for 5 years at running back. And Saban sort of thought to himself, this is a game where we should be able to run this football, especially when you discuss Tulsa, who rushed for near 300 yards against Cincinnati. The Bearcats coming into the matchup. Best pass defense in college football, absolutely. But against the run, Cincinnati was giving up roughly 140 yards per game, gave up 14 rushing touchdowns. So Alabama just felt like we don't necessarily need to be all the way explosive in this game if we're able to run this football, because Cincinnati's defensive line was giving up some pounds to Alabama's offensive line. And I felt like, to me, this matchup reminded me of the 2016 Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl between Alabama and Washington. Remember, that defense gave Jake Browning fits out there. Even offensively, Jalen Hurts, not the most polished passer in the world, but they put the game on the back of the offensive line, and Bo Scarborough just ran wild there in Atlanta. 180 yards rushing off 19 carries, had 2 rushing touchdowns in the game. The final score of that one was 24-6. So I kind of felt like it played along the same notion of that 2016 Peach Bowl of the college football playoff semifinal matchup right there, where Alabama, you know, it could have been explosive if it wanted to be. You still saw Bryce Young throw 3 touchdown passes to Ja'Cory Brooks, Slade Bolden, and Cameron Latu. But I still felt like Saban wanted to put the game on the back of the offensive line and Brian Robinson to run the football.
And in doing so, Stephen, though, the offensive line got nicked up a bit. What's your assessment of it? Of course, it's difficult to get exact injury news, but what is the status of the offensive line at this point?
Well, the 2 guys that got banged up, Mark, both came on the right side. Emil Ekiyor at right guard and Chris Owens at right tackle. Owens has practiced since the injury. He's back out there practicing at number 79. Ekiyor is back out there as well. According to Coach Saban, he mentioned that he was very hopeful that Jeff Allen and the training staff would have both of those 2 guys, Ekiyor and Owens, prepared to go to face Georgia. Now, we did see true freshman J.C. Latham at right guard against Cincinnati, taking over for Ekiyor. We also saw Amari Kite filling in at right tackle for Chris Owens. So Alabama does have the backups prepared also, but Saban was extremely hopeful that he would get Ekiyor and Owens back for Georgia. And it looks like both of them will be back.
Brian Robinson obviously had a banner day. When you look at the various lists and charts of performances in postseason play, it ranks just below Zeke Elliott and some of the historic Derrick Henry years and so forth. Not just talking about Bama lore, but in college football as he drove it for more than 200 yards against Cincinnati. This Georgia front's a different deal. How much do you think Alabama is going to balance what they would like to continue in establishing the run to keep Georgia honest versus relying on the run to try to win this game?
I think you're not going to be able to rely on the run simply because Georgia's a different front. Jordan Davis is 6'6", 340 pounds for a reason. Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, those guys are who they are for a reason. So you're not going to be able to just overly rely on the run. However, you do want to implement that to give Georgia something to respect. So I'm not saying Brian Robinson's going to have another 200-yard day, but somewhere between 80 to 125 yards. That's doable. Somewhere between that 80 to 125 yard mark. And then not just Brian Robinson, but mixing in Trey Sanders, mixing in some designed runs with Bryce Young, having that element that Georgia has to respect out there in terms of their defensive front and the secondary. Also, Alabama's going to have to take shots down the field. We know this. With Jamison Williams, with Ja'Cory Brooks, with other guys, Slade Bolden, and that possession, a type of receiver or deal. Is this a game where we can finally see Jamil Billingsley have that breakout type of game? He's had some off-field issues early on in the season, but has cleaned those up as the season has progressed on. But is this a matchup where Bill O'Brien goes back to reestablishing him at that tight end position? We've seen him establish Cameron Latou. Going back to Cincinnati, Latou had a touchdown reception in that game. So I want to see some screens. We get some screen action here with the receivers, with the running backs, with the tight end. So there's different ways that Coach O'Brien can go with this from an offensive standpoint, but it's going to have to be attacking Georgia from different angles. The Bulldogs are who they are for a reason. We saw against Michigan them getting back to that soul-snatching type of performance defensively. So for Alabama, you're going to want to have balance, but it's going to come down to Brian Robinson, maybe in that 80 to 125 rushing yards range, and then getting other guys involved.
Stephen Smith's here from Touchdown Alabama to break down the Tide. You can catch Stephen on touchdownalabama.com and also on his show, as you see right there on the banner. In My Own Words, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on YouTube, 6 Central. All right, Stephen, flipping to the other side of the ball, Brock Bowers has emerged as a premier tight end. What he did in the first SEC championship game is on record for everyone to see. That was pretty impressive. And then following that up against Michigan, they had matchup nightmares there as well. Do you expect Alabama to take the same approach with Bowers this time around, or maybe change something up?
You're going to have to work in some different things here, because this is the guy, Brock Bowers from California, of whom this is the one Alabama fans are nervous about. I mean, he leads Georgia receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns, and 10 catches, 139 yards, 1 touchdown in the SEC championship game. He was everywhere. He was catching screens. He was catching post routes. He was catching dig routes. He was high pointing the ball. Somebody captured a catch. He caught the ball over, I think, Jordan Battle and DeMarco Helms in double coverage. And you couldn't really do anything with him there in that matchup. He is an elite player. So there are different things that Bama's going to have to do, whether it's bracketing him with different guys, whether it's maybe putting a 6'3" Kyrie Jackson with a 6'6" wingspan on him, just trying different elements to see, can we disrupt him? Can we disrupt the timing between he and Stetson Bennett at quarterback? Just something to throw off the communication, the connection there, because he is one of those players that is a premier weapon in the sport. And if you just sit there and give him free releases, he's going to tear you apart all game. So that is one area that Pete Golden will have to zero in on, what's the best way possible we can have to neutralize Bowers' production, because that guy is marquee.
Folks, please like the video, share the videos out on social media, subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football, and lock in on your favorite team, because we've got 25 team channels as well, including Alabama. Stephen Smith joins us all the time here from touchdownalabama.com, and has for years, so lock in on his show. It is a tremendous find right here on YouTube, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. There you see it on the banner, 6 Central Time. Staying on the Georgia offense, you brought up the name Stetson Bennett. I've been asked all year, is this guy good enough to win a national championship? My typical response was, for about 95% of the snaps, for about 38 of his 40 passing attempts, or whatever the number turns out to be, that he drops back, I think he is. But he has always been plagued, especially against Alabama, but also against Florida when they lost that game last year in 2020, plagued with the 2 or 3 critical mistakes per game. He cleaned that up against Michigan, but at the same time, I don't know that he was placed in a lot of 3rd and 12s, 3rd and 14s, when he tends to make that mistake like he has against the Tide.
I think the one thing with Stetson Bennett that's also kind of plagued him in these situations is people look at him as, is he the guy that can drive the ball downfield and put the team on his back and win it for you? I always go back to the statement that Bucky Brooks would always make: you're a truck or a trailer. For a truck, the coaches look at you and say, son, win the game. We need you. We exhausted everything. You go out there, you win us this football game. I don't care how you get it done. Go win it. It may have to be off script. Go win the football game. Is Stetson Bennett that type of player? Is he that type of talent? Is he that type of an ability? And he can be, but at the same time, I don't think that's what Kirby Smart wants. And Kirby has kind of crafted this Georgia team to be like the 2009 Alabama team, where the quarterback, you don't have to be that type of player. You just get the ball to all of the pieces around you and kind of let those guys do the work and let your defense do the work. But in today's age of college football, and also in today's age of NFL, when you have those types of quarterbacks that all stuff breaks loose and they still have that type of talent to get it done, when you look at the Aaron Rodgers, the Patrick Mahomes, the Justin Herberts, we're seeing what Joe Burrow is doing right now in the NFL, those types of guys, when everything else breaks down and they've got the wherewithal to go off script and go, well, here we go, boom. And you see it happen out there. Can Stetson Bennett provide that? I think that's the one quality that is sort of missing there. Can he provide that? Because that's what Alabama puts you in. Alabama puts you in situations where they squeeze the life out of you and everything breaks down around you, and then it becomes bad man. Can you go off script to beat this Alabama team? That's the question Stetson Bennett has to answer Monday night.
Toward the end of the college football season, in 2 different conferences, there was a gigantic psychological warfare between 2 major rivalries. And what I'm pointing to is Ohio State has had its foot on Michigan's throat for years, and Michigan overcame that, went through that psychological situation that we've seen for years where Ohio State had it on them. Georgia, Alabama, Georgia did not get through that barrier. And here we go again. We've got Georgia, Alabama once again. There are people in one camp that say Alabama's still got that psychological advantage. Georgia's going to doubt itself. If they make a mistake early, they're going to think, here we go again, that sort of thing, versus the Georgia's got to be so raving mad and ready just to let out its frustrations. It's a difficult one to evaluate, but what do you think here?
I mean, there are 2 different cards hitting the table. There are 2 different poker chips hitting the table. When you look at Georgia's playing the card of the SEC championship, that was not real Georgia. Real Georgia was against Michigan in the Orange Bowl. And so here comes Alabama playing the card of, we beat this team by 17 points and you're doubting us again. So you have 2 different ideals hitting the table, but whether you call it psychological advantage, whether you call it exercise and demons, whatever you want to, whatever adjective or statement you want to throw out there, Kirby Smart has to get this done, because the pressure is on him. Georgia hired him in 2016 for one reason, and it's Kirby, we got to win championships. We haven't seen one since 1980. And we brought you over here because you sat under Nick Saban for 9 years, from 2007 to 2015, and you gathered all the knowledge you could possibly gather. Is there anything within that near decade of knowledge that you have accumulated that can help us finally get over this hurdle? Because this is a massive hurdle. And since Saban has been at Alabama, Georgia is 1-7 against him. The only win 2007, Saban's first year, 26-23. Kirby is 0-4, including 0-3 in championship settings. So he is stressing himself out, watching film, trying to get, where am I missing it at? Where can I finally get this? Like, where is the problem? So as much as the Georgia fans are stressing and Vegas is stressing, putting money on Kirby for this game, Kirby Smart is somewhere in the man cave in Athens stressing his mind about, how can I finally get this done? So there are two different cards here, Mark, on the table. Which card walks out holding the trophy next Monday at Lucas Oil Stadium? That's where all the fun comes in.
Because ironically, if you look at the 2017 national championship game, that was the game in which Alabama had the greatest talent advantage. Georgia obviously was really good, but Georgia outplayed them in that game, of course. Tua saved them, and they pulled it out in overtime. Since then, and especially the deeper it goes with Kirby Smart stockpiling these recruiting classes, it's a flip of the coin in regards to those teams just being loaded with waves of talent. So the talent situation is just like this, it's dead even. It's not that, it's something else.
It's got to be psychologically right, because I go back to when Bama lost to Florida in 2008 with Tim Tebow, SEC championship game. Saban always talked about, we had the talent to win that game against Tebow. We didn't have the belief we could win that game against Tebow. And then it came back to the next year where the talent was not only there, but the belief was there, and everybody bought in that we can beat Florida. And then it happened. For Kirby Smart, it's the same thing. The talent is there for Georgia, but for Kirby, is the belief there? Does he really think he can beat Nick Saban? Does this Georgia team really feel like we can beat them? Because if the belief is there, then you're going to start to see the plays manifest themselves on the field. That's what it comes down to. Does Kirby and do the players really truly think there is no difference between us and Alabama? We can beat them. It's the belief there. That's the big question.
Always love the breakdown from Stephen M. Smith of TouchdownAlabama.com. Join him on his show right there. In my own words, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right here on YouTube, 6 Central. Stephen, we appreciate you stopping by. Enjoy the game, and we will catch up with you soon.
Absolutely, Mark. We'll do that. You take care of it.